just unicorns and rainbows. Hello, everyone, and welcome to I'm a BCBA. What now? I see Jordan press record and not me, so amazing.
I remember to do it, so might as well.
I'm impressed.
One of us would have forgotten. Casey's not here with her.
Yeah, with her, I agree. So if you're here, whether you're BCBA or BCABA, hopefully these are just some basics that we can answer for you, because there is a steep, I don't know, learning curve. I don't want to scare anyone. But there is like a, oh wait, I've passed. I've spent so much time on studying for this test. What now? And it seems like the path is not as clear. So we're just trying to get you started with that. We have Jordan here who, if there is anything you need to know about being a BCBA, you want to ask Jordan. And Jordan is doing our CEUs. If you've been aware, after a year, the CEUs by STUDYNOTES ABAI have come out. And Jordan, you could tell them a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So who are we? These are pictures of us, but you can also see us, popping up on your screen. As Liat already mentioned, I will be running CEUs for STUDYNOTES ABAI. We will be pulling in our own courses as well as individuals from across the United States and hopefully other countries once we get certified in other ways outside of the BACB to provide really interesting CEUs, really fun CEUs, engaging CEUs that even though it's virtual doesn't mean that it'll be boring. And that's the entire premise of CEUs by STUDYNOTES ABAI. And this is not a CEU, just to clear the air. This is not a CEU, rather just us two BCBAs giving advice. And like Liat said, there is kind of like this safety net or like harness release that happens. And you're just kind of like, I don't know where. And this course was formed kind of looking at the questions that we were seeing a lot, either on Facebook or Instagram or emails or just talking to people and thinking ourselves. So obviously it's not exhaustive, but there are just some things that we feel like are nice to know. So when we get started, one, you are amazing. Welcome to life as a BCBA. This is such an accomplishment. Be super proud of yourself. Regardless of how long it took you to get here, you are here, and that is amazing. Now, I'm going to talk about self-management skills really briefly, partially briefly because this is a skill deficit of my own, but also because what?
Yeah, right.
Organization, good. Self-management, not so good. Setting goals, not great. But I can organize the shit out of an Excel table. And so always remember, when you can, use your own self-management skills. I could go into some silly definition from Cooper or give you the actual definition of it. But all I really mean is just create your own systems that work. What worked for you or what worked for somebody else might not work for you. What works for you might not work for somebody else. But the trick is to find things that actually work. And what do I mean by that? Like creating your own schedules, things that are important. Household chores are not important. I assume if you were in our CEUs when I did boot camp, I went on a rant about how much I hate doing laundry. So, I hate doing this, but I have to schedule time throughout my day. I also have to schedule time for, physical activity or just moving from, now a lot of us are doing virtual, moving from sitting behind the computer to moving around. If it's just, a quick lap around wherever you are. The most important thing about your self-management skills is that you need to create you time. Hold yourself accountable to creating you time. This job is exhausting. I don't have to tell you that. We all know it. So how can you put the same amount of effort in creating your own self-management skills with really, at least this was what I had to work on. I had to work on setting better boundaries for myself and making sure that I was saving time for myself, because I'm not going to be able to be a good practitioner if I'm burnt out, if I'm frustrated, if I'm cranky, if I'm grumpy, overtired. I'm not going to provide good quality supervision, not going to provide like direct services well. I'm not going to be able to manage if I'm in a classroom setting, if I'm working with adults, regardless of where you are. You have to, I always think about like feed the tank before, you run on empty. And just the last thing, be kind to yourself. I know this seems silly, you know, this is of course about being a BCBA. Why are you spending the first, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes talking about all these strategies? Like, this isn't the Zoom I signed up for. No, but it is a reminder from 2 BCBAs that have gone through this, 2 BCBAs that have burnt out, 2 BCBAs that have, you know, tried to think of different ways to just stay engaged and stay motivated. And these were just some of the things that we kept feeling like were really important. So that's why they're in the beginning. And now we can get down to like some of the more juicy stuff. So here's a graph. This was obviously before COVID. This is from the BACB website. They utilized this company called Burning Glass Technologies, and they were looking at the annual demand for BCBA certification in 2019. Obviously, this is a bit outdated, but I do just want you to look at that steep slope going up of the number of job postings. Or here's BCABA, right? That's the number of job postings, people looking for the jobs. Obviously, again, not only 2019, but pre-COVID, if anything, the demand is going to be higher. There's going to be, you know, definitely a whole group of individuals that are growing up, maybe newly diagnosed, that may not have access to services right now because of COVID, may start to begin to have access to services once, you know, vaccines are more rapidly administered throughout. And I just want to emphasize this is that, like, yes, the demand is really high, but you need to focus on you building your practice and being a good BCBA. You are in high demand, but first your focus should be building your own skills. And what I mean by that, and this is to paraphrase Dr. McGreevy, he always says this is the only certification where you get your hours, you sit for an exam, and then that's it. He was like, I wouldn't want my open heart surgeon having the same education and hours that the BCBAs have. And obviously, you know, that is just as a reminder that, like, there is always learning. Just because we're a BCBA, that also happens to be the highest level of learning. That doesn't mean we should stop. And always remember, you always can keep learning. And so obviously what I'm saying is that
Can I add?
Yeah, go for it. Let me go back.
Sorry, I'm never that respectful, but I kept raising my hand, but it wasn't.
Oh, I didn't see.
You're not used to it, I know.
It's not a CEU. You can pop in. I'm not, you know, train of thought. This is more like riffing.
Perfect. All right. So guys, let me tell you something. I am contacted all the times by clinics, different schools, in-home services. Like, can you help us find BCBAs? Let me tell you, and I know Jordan's going to go more into it on the next page. You guys are so wanted. Okay. You do have that power. So you're saying I'm like really valuable. Yeah, I am. You are really, really valuable. But let me tell you, if you want to keep yourself happy in this field, don't go for the first job that offers you to be a director straight out of taking your exam. I know it seems exciting and it's $5,000 more, but listen, those jobs will be there. There is a clinic popping up quicker than a herpes breakout, all right? They literally pop up left, right, and center. You have power, so you do have some negotiation power, but also I'm telling you, if I could go back and do what Jordan did versus what I did, I used to always make fun of Jordan because she literally was paying to work. And I'd be like, what are you doing? You're like paying to work. It's weird. Like, you literally pay more in gas than you make. But she has so much more experience now. And I was like, I like loved it. They were like, you could basically have your own clinic. And I thought that was so cool. But let me tell you, it leads to burnout, isolation, and you just feel like overloaded as hell. Okay, sorry, Jordan, that's all I have.
No, that was, yeah. I think that I always forget that anecdote, but yeah, that was a great point. Like, there's always time to get experience. Obviously, listen, let's just call a spade a spade. We're not in this job for the glamorous paycheck. Like, we're not. But if you can, I would always recommend finding a company where they have a lot of BCBAs on staff. Typically, that is a signal that they prioritize the training and the skill level of their team members or their staff over just churning out PCBAs or churning out RBTs or just churning out clients. That's just one of the things that from our personal experience, obviously there's no data behind that, but our personal experience, we've seen that typically if you are at a clinic where there are a lot of BCBAs providing even direct care, obviously some situations in some states with insurance you can't, but, or as much rather, not you can't provide as many hours. But just keep that in mind. Always ask questions. How many BCBAs do you have on the team? How am I going to be supervised? How am I going to be learning? Those are all good questions to ask. And so obviously there's a lot more to learn, but how do we operationally define successful? So at Study Notes ABA, I don't have to explain to you that sometimes we make shit up, but sometimes the shit we make up is interesting and engaging and funny. So something that we made up is an acronym or hashtag called BARS. And what do I mean by BARS? Well, these are 4 ways that we kind of operationally defined as ways to be successful in this field. So something that we've learned firsthand is that we have to build strong relationships, build trust, and building your talk it out repertoire. Those 3 are super important. Build strong relationships with every single person that you interact with on a daily basis. Build strong relationships. And I feel like I don't have to fully explain this, but like even build relationships with, if you work in a school, with individuals that are possibly on the maintenance staff, on the cleaning staff, like build relationships, because you're never going to know when you are in a situation and you need somebody to physically help you, emotionally help you, like mentally help you in any sort of way. So it's always just good to build relationships. You want to be building bridges instead of burning them. The next thing is going to be accept that you have a lot to learn. Again, no matter how long you've been in the field, you still will always be learning. And that is why we are required to attend continuing education events or courses every 2 years. Also, and this is super difficult at first, and there's a fine line between being able to accept feedback and then just feeding into this self-fulfilling prophecy of like, I'm never going to be good enough, so I'm just not going to ever do anything on my own. So it is, and I call you out about this constantly, and like this is something that I totally struggle with, the fine line between feedback and self-confidence. They don't have to be where one is up and the other is down. You can get feedback and still be confident in yourself. And just remember that building your acceptance of feedback, building your delivery of feedback, being better at delivering feedback in a way that is not just how you would accept it, but like utilizing the research. There is a lot of research, especially if you look in the designation of OBM. Aubrey Daniels is a great place to start looking at his research and just working on your skills of giving feedback, especially in the role of BCBA. You're going to be expected to give a lot of feedback, and you're going to probably be hearing it whether you ask for it or not. Something else that we like to remind everybody is respect. This kind of goes hand in hand with the feedback, but more so on the sense of respecting suggestions or recommendations from those you work with or those that you're on a team with. Just because you haven't thought of an idea and you're the BCBA doesn't mean you should throw it out. I always like to, like at this part, think about like philosophic doubt. Like if a supervisee or an RBT is saying to me, wait, why are we doing that? Or wait, what if we tried this? Well, it's not you're wrong because you're an RBT and you just don't know. But maybe I should, have some philosophic doubt with myself and think about like, what, oh, could this maybe work? Oh, maybe this behavior tact that has been one-on-one with this individual for a year now, maybe they do have a better insight. Maybe it's not going to be an empirical based, she's not going to, or he's not going to provide you research based articles, but they may have something. And then it's your job as the BCBA to go in and then find the research or not. But again, just remember, always take and respect different suggestions or recommendations, and play nice in the sandbox with all providers on every single case. I cannot tell you how beneficial it is to always be the person that is just neutral. Just be neutral. I know that sometimes in our jobs and in our settings, there is some informality to it. And sometimes that is difficult, especially when there's a preset culture at a specific place we work. that's really difficult, especially when you get thrown into it. It kind of gets like kind of high schooly, just at least in some of my experiences. And it is hard not to get sucked in. So try and remind yourself that your goal is to play nice in the sandbox with everybody. And that is going to make you a better practitioner because you are going to learn. Danielle, one of our tutors and teachers in the collective, she always says, don't be a BCBA hole. And I love that so much. It's just don't be one. That should be, maybe I'll just add that another time. And finally,
one thing there, I just want to tell you,
go
I
for
got
it.
a message yesterday on Instagram from someone I've never heard from before. And they're like, hey, I really value your opinion. So I was wondering if you could tell me why so many people hate BCBAs. And I said, well, a lot of them are assholes and a lot of them don't utilize the basic principle of pairing, right? They go in, they know everything. And yeah, we think we're pretty effing great, but you don't know everything and you need these people on your side. So it sounds like a basic thing. And you're probably, a lot of you guys listening are like, of course, I'm not going to be an asshole to someone I work with. And probably a lot of you guys in here will accidentally. All right. Before you even go in and start working with little Jake, you go in and you compliment that teacher, how she runs the classroom. You tell her you like her tattoo on her tramp stamp, that is so cute hanging out. Whatever the hell you need to do, you do. This is pairing, okay? Like, wow, how you get those kids set up is really amazing, right? You need to have some buy-in from them. Otherwise, it's like, who's this bitch coming in here, not having to deal with me all the time, just coming in to consult, right? You're not having to deal with this kid who's like pulling his clothes off in the classroom. So just remember that you have got to pair with your staff. Please see CEU, Behavior Bootcamp, Study Notes ABA, pairing.
I think, and just to piggyback off of that, I mean, that like, don't be fake. You can, as a consultant, I learned that there's always something that you can provide some sort of vocal reinforcement or compliment, right? Like there is always something, regardless of, even if there are kids like hanging from the rafters or like, licking the ink of the printer, like there's always something else that is going on that is going to be, set up nicely. So you can always find something in that. And just one more thing, and then I'm going to go to setup. With respect, like you have to move in baby steps. If you're a BCBA in a clinic, the biggest shakeup for me as a BCBA, I probably should have introduced like my background and context a little bit. I started out on the clinical side, then I moved to a private school and I taught, and then I was in the consulting role. And I had moving from the clinic to the school for me was just like culture shock. It was just so different. I was ready. I came with my clipboard. I bought extra counters. I was like, I'm going to get this classroom tip top ABA shape. Everybody's going to be recording data. Everything is going to be perfect. And I quickly learned in that little successive approximations to the terminal behavior were going to be the only way I was going to get everything done. Did I get everything implemented? Absolutely not. Did I get the important things implemented? Most parts of it, but it is a very big culture shock switching from one type of environment to another. And that's not to say that one is better than another. They're just different. So remember, when you're moving to a different environment, maybe a different setting, a different location, a different job, always remember, or even in home, like meeting a new family, always remember that there's going to be a new level of respect, you have to earn your stripes everywhere you go. And with setting up, if you ever hear me talk, I will always talk about data collection. Data collection is so important. Being successful relies on data collection. Why? Because we are a science that relies on data. If we weren't, then I wouldn't be saying data collection, but it really is important. Always think about who is collecting the data. How are they going to collect it best? I used to always ask myself, can I explain to somebody in like 2 to 3 sentences why this data sheet is important? And if the response at the end of it is just because I think we need to take data on it, then I had to modify the sheet. Or even you can have somebody that doesn't understand ABA, like look over a data sheet and you can say, do you, like if there are instructions or some sort of, obviously don't give them like a data sheet that they'll never understand, but if there's some sort of instructions, and know that you have to modify things for a parent versus in a clinic or in a school that you would with a staff member. And so we're being a little silly here, and our operational definition of success only gave you recommendations about you. We didn't tell you how to deal with your shitty boss, your shitty supervisor, your shitty supervisees, shitty professionals in the field, people that are just bothering you, because every single person like is going to react their own way. So if you can develop those skills, and if you can look at, building relationships and accepting feedback and growing and respecting individuals and setting up good data collection systems for you, then you can conquer anything. Obviously that's not, end all be all to being a behavior analyst, but those are some really important key facts and anecdotes that I like to share. And so we get a lot of this. Thank you for all that inspirational information. But okay, can you talk to me about some actual pieces of being a BCBA? Because I've logged onto the website and I'm confused. I need some help. So here's some of our favorite tips and tricks. Again, this was pulled from a lot of questions that we were seeing that were repetitively asked, and hopefully to clear some things up. So some tools from the BACB. And before I start, this is the number one place that I would go if I am thinking about writing something in a Facebook group. Prior to writing, like, I have this individual, I need help, the first place that I would go is to this resources tab on my BACB login. And the reason behind that is because having a BACB login allows you access to these 4 different journals and data search base. It was 3 journals in 1 data search base. And you can start to look up keywords that have to do with that individual. And the reason that I am going to stress a little bit of this is just, there's research that has been published about response effort, and that the response effort for writing in a Facebook group and the reinforcement from that is so much higher, or the response effort lower, reinforcement higher, than going into my BACB portal, trying to search through journals, trying to read and see if the individual described in the individual description matches my individual in some way, shape, or form, then reading the entire article only to find out it has absolutely nothing to do with what I was looking for. Right? So think about the response effort. I can write on Facebook, or I can research it. And I know this one's a lot easier, but I really urge you to think of it. I'm super nerdy and lame, so I think about it as like I'm going on like a treasure hunt and trying to figure it out. Like, maybe I'm going to look and I'm going to see the research of this empirical procedure and I'll try it. And then maybe it doesn't work as is. Maybe I modify it, right? I can use my almost, I think about it as using the brain that we use to study, using it to modify protocols and procedures, and modifying it within reason for that individual. Again, this is just watching and anecdotally, but it's a lot of well-intentioned individuals asking for support and help. And I totally get that. And I encourage the support and the help, but I would try and structure your questions more so, does anybody have research to provide me? Instead of, does anyone have, like, a popular one is, does anyone have a social story for this? I always comment, and it's not to be like a jerk, but I'll always comment, like, have you researched or have you looked up like in X, Y, and Z, or have you and your team discussed A, B, C, D, E? Like, why are we going straight to a social story? Or maybe I need research on a specific social story or something like that. And I'll go off my research tangent now, but just to emphasize that you can have free access to journal articles. And now, also navigating the BACB website, this is also a common question that we get, is how do I put my continuing education credits when I eventually earn them into my portal? So to the left of your resources portal, you're going to find your continuing education tab. And because I love antecedent intervention, I have also created a visual on how to upload your CEUs to the BACB website. This is a graphic I made. Feel free, you can download it from our CEU website. We have a resources tab, and if you click free resources, you can download this at any time. It's for you to have, to print, to save, to not ever look at again. And you can find there's 2 other free resources on our website as well, where you can find, and as time goes on, I will continually add things that are helpful and interesting as resources. So this is how you can walk through it. And I will just mention one thing. So if the language of synchronous and asynchronous is brand new, that's okay. They did a little pivot in the language. So all they mean by online synchronous is, and don't feel silly for not knowing this, I had to look it up. The first time I saw it on the BACB portal, I was like, synchronous. I guess I understand that if there's an asynchronous, it's usually something not, but my understanding was very limited. So synchronous means we were all took it together, started on time, ended on time. Well, not on time. Started at the same time, ended at the same time. And asynchronous is like you completed it on your own. And
hey, Jordan, I had a quick question.
Yeah, go for it.
When you get ready to upload the CEUs, because I have taken a few, does it like separate for you which categories like you still need CEUs in?
No, you have to, oh, well, sort of. So you have to plug in all the numbers yourself. You have to categorize them. So when you categorize them, let me rewind. On your certificate, it'll say if it's general learning CEUs, supervision, or ethics, and they are required. And we'll get into how you know that you're taking CEUs from a place that has provided you the correct information or that can give CEUs. They've provided you with that breakdown. So you plug it in there's a table and it'll say ethics, supervision, general, I believe is the order. And you plug in those numbers. And then on your portal, like on the second bottom half of this page, it'll have a table and it'll say, this is how many total you have. I don't believe it counts down, but I actually, on the same page as this document, on the same resources, on the resources tab, I actually have created a CEU tracker, which will do that for you and let you know how many CEUs total you need to earn remaining.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Okay, so does anyone have any other, while we're opening the floor to those, like the questions specifically to uploading CEUs, does anyone have any other questions about that?
This is also on our site. I know you just said it, but it's on that little tab down there. So if you're like right now and it's not relevant to you and you don't have the MO right now of looking up where to upload a CEU because you're not there yet, Jordan has literally made the website the definition of technological.
I
like
tried.
she thought of everything that might ever happen. Like
I tried.
I'm in a CEU, my finger starts bleeding. She'll let you know. It's on there. All of the how-tos.
Oh man. Okay, so navigating the BACB website, there's also a separate portal to record your 8-hour supervisor training. So this is just how you like complete it. It's just like a 2 or 3 step process. I should have honestly made a task analysis when I was doing it and I forgot to, so I don't have the exact steps, but just know you must log your 8-hour in here. And then I forget if it automatically puts it in continuing ed, but just you can always refresh and go back and forth between the 2 tabs. I feel like they don't communicate. And again, I regret not making a TA. So if any of you remember while you're doing your 8-hour and you want to text me a picture of what's happening, I will be happy to update it. Okay. So now let's talk about some things that I feel like we kind of brush under the rug. There are 2 types of behavior analysts. And obviously they're not just 2, there's a lot, but I'm just overgeneralizing. We either love what we do or we really want to change. And on this side, we have a newly certified BCBA that loves what they're doing. They love the environment they're in. They're just happy to be there. And that's amazing. And it is incredible that you found where you need to be. That's, I feel like that's where I felt strongly where I was when, Liat and I started to work together. And I was just like, oh my God, this is it. This is what I want. But I also know that there are BCBAs that feel like, I have spent all this time, energy, tears, blood, money, and I am a BCBA and I don't know if this is for me. And that's okay. You don't need to feel lost. There's actually an entire resource library / different organizational structures so that you don't have to feel stuck. And I'm going to talk to the people that may feel stuck a little bit. If you feel stuck, There's actually on the ABAI website. So if you have not heard of ABAI, that's Applied Behavior Analysts International. It's a organization. It's not a governing body. Rather, it's an organization, and they have incredible resources. One of them is their special interest groups. So you can type in the top, if you search special interest group or SIG or SIG, then it'll bring you to this page. So you don't have to worry about writing down the whole URL, and you can screenshot it anytime. It's not the collective, we'll put this on YouTube so you can also watch it again and pause it. But the special interest groups, I tried to count once and then I got distracted and stopped counting, but there's an entire list of special interest groups that are available for you to join, to look at. Obviously, some have a nominal fee. I actually believe all of them have some sort of fee, but you can be and see and speak to other real life BCBAs that are interested in a special interest group. Me personally, I am part of the verbal behavior interest group. That is just an area that I really, really like to be a part of. But
understatement of the century.
What?
Understatement of the century.
But also, if I had to choose, and if I was not happy in my application of the science, where I would go is, applied animal behavior. I just, ever since getting a dog and rescuing a dog, that has where my, focus has been like, oh, this is what I can do. Now, obviously, just because you join a SIG doesn't mean that you can immediately start implementing the application of the science in that specific setting. You can't just, call a bunch of dog trainers, or I can, and be like, okay, I'm a BCBA, I'm ready to do this. You obviously have to learn and be mentored, but this is a good place to start. And I always love to show people this because I do, again, something else that we've seen a lot is I just can't believe I've wasted all of this time in my life and I don't know what to do. And again, I am and was the BCBA that I found my niche, I found where I wanted to be, and I was happy, and that's okay too. But if you're not happy, you are not stuck. Like Liat was saying, there are so many people looking for BCBAs and jobs in so many different ways and so many different applications. So just keep reminding yourself you're not stuck.
And also, I just, I've seen this page many times. I've come across this special interest groups page, but actually only 2 days ago was Jordan and I were working on something for the CEUs, and I was like, dude, I literally need to get Pavlov trained. Like, it's been 2 years now, almost. Like, he needs to get effing trained, like, as he walks over my computer screen on my desk. And she's like, why don't you go look at the special interest groups of like applied animal behavior? And if you guys saw before, what I didn't do any research. I just took the first trainer I found, who I think was a choir teacher, and would just like sing to him, and like it was not working. It was like idiotic on my part. And, it just like clicked for me suddenly that I was like, there are all these other usages of applied behavior analysis in terms of, like, remember, the BCBA is just the credential that insurance needs for you to be able to bill insurance for individuals with autism. So there are many people doing really, really, really cool things, right? Like, there's all these other programs. For example, this girl I'm having come work with Pavlov is like, there's applied behavior animal schools, right? They're not becoming BCBAs because they don't need to bill insurance. But just to keep that in mind, because a lot of people feel really, as Jordan was saying, really, really stuck. Like, I just don't know if this is what I want to do. And that's fine.
And there's also, like, just catching my eye, there are also like community groups. So there's like Spanish SIGs, and I should have said like Espanol SIGs. So, there's also, it's not just I'm not happy. It's also maybe I want to find, like, for me, the verbal behavior SIG is like, I want to be on email chains with people talking about nerdy verbal behavior things. I want to talk about on like chains, and I want to watch and be in Facebook groups where there are conversations between people that have published research and be super nerdy about it. And that's okay too. You can also join a bunch of SIGs and be parts of them just to be a part of them. Just then remember to cancel your subscription if you, no longer need that SIG. And so another question that we always get is, what 1,100 books or should I order? And Ryan O'Donnell, the Daily BA, he gave me some flack about saying like we shouldn't order all of them. I also, I live in a very small apartment. So for me, clutter is no good. So I try and make a rule that I'm only going to purchase books that I will actually read, and then I can't. It's like a one in, one out. I have to read a book before I can purchase a new one. So this list is not exhaustive. Um, I recommend you getting as many books as you want, but just know that not every single person has read every single book. This is just a basic starting point. I do know that a lot of people in their master's program may have had to read verbal behavior and science of human behavior. My program was not one that did, so I took it upon myself to read those books after I had passed my BCBA exam. And obviously this is our new Cooper edition. Definitely read it. Just because you're a BCBA doesn't mean you don't need the book. You need to know there are like minute details that change between the second edition and the third. And it is just so slight. And you always just want to be up on not only the research, but where our field is going and our, one really only applied textbook or our one textbook
Also,
required.
Supervising. Sorry, yawn when I'm saying something. If you're supervising, you got to be up to speed for your supervisees. Okay, so as much as you will never want to look at an hours verification form sheet again, you kind of got to know what's going on. The same goes with your Cooper book and keeping up with what's going on in the field.
And again, feel free to take a screenshot. This is not proprietary information. This is just a compilation of books or materials that we like. We don't make any money from saying that we like these. We just happen to like these, and we think that some of these are helpful. And that's the same idea with this next page. So without getting super, super, super into it, because I could go on forever about this, we should all be familiar with assessments that make use of Skinner's analysis of verbal behavior. Now, what do I mean by Skinner's analysis of verbal behavior? I mean looking at behavior through the operant, considering the listener, also looking at speaker and listener behavior, just amongst the few things that makes an assessment in this category. This list is not one I made up. I utilized the references that Dr. Sundberg had used in Cooper 2020 or the third edition on page 436 in not the international version, just the regular old version. And these were just the assessments that are still in play that he had cited when he was talking about this. And we need to make sure, just as a blanket statement, that we're utilizing assessments that are measuring all of this, and that ethically we are using behavior analytic assessments or assessments that are grounded in behavior analytic research to assess individuals we're working with. And obviously this is only for the application of when you're using the science with individuals, typically with autism or developmental disorders. And the reason I say that is because you are not going to run the VB map if you are working in a setting. Let's say you're in an OBM setting and you are working with a company. Do not pull out the VB map. If you are working with a different application, maybe you are working in applied animal behavior, do not pull out the VB map. That's just my little soapbox. I will pop back off of it. And now here is something that we get all the time. Obviously we provide CEUs. We're affiliated with CEUs by STUDYNOTES ABA. We are CEUs by STUDYNOTES ABA. We are obligated to say that, whenever you buy products there, we do make money from it. Let's call a spade. But there are also a lot of other places to get CEUs. So we divided them into three kind of categorizations as international association conferences, state conferences, or ABAs, as you'll learn really quickly that's what they're called. I didn't for a while, full disclosure. I had no idea what people were talking about. And then individually run conferences or courses. So what do I mean by international association conferences? That would be ABAI, what I just mentioned before, that has the list of the SIGs. There's also another international conference for women in behavior analysis, or WIBA, I think is the term that they've been calling it. I do know that they're being hosted this year virtually, I believe. And you can look that up, but there's also a ton, again, just listed a few. State conferences or ABA. So I'm pretty sure every single state has their own ABA. I'm just going to tell you that the one in New York is called NYSABA, or NYS, New York State ABA, and as well as Texas is TexABA. I think that Pennsylvania's is PABA. There's a lot of A's in there in some of the states. California is CalABA, right? So anytime you hear somebody being like, oh, are you going to TexABA? Like, I literally was the person, I was like Googling on my phone, what is TexABA ABA? Like, I didn't know what it was. So don't feel embarrassed. Also, don't feel embarrassed to say to somebody, I'm sorry, what's that acronym? We are a field of acronyms, and there are a lot of them. So never feel ashamed that you have no idea. Someone may be like, oh, I'm going to use RFT and then ACT, and I'm going to implement it using this and this and this. And you're like, whoa, what? Sorry, can you just give me the full terms? Never be embarrassed about that. And then also, obviously, there are individually run conferences and courses, which is us, CEUs by Study Notes ABA. Now, what are some things that I should expect during CEUs? So I have to say that my friend Liat has set a pretty high bar with the engaging quality of virtual courses. I and anybody else creating CEUs has giant shoes to fill. Why? Because there are just some differences between taking a study prep course and something like a CEU, even if it is the same brand and similar people. And what do I mean by that? Well, the purpose of earning a CEU, obviously, to keep your certification, is for you to grow as a behavior analyst. So what does that mean? Well, we have to engage in activities that are going to build our specific skill sets. So it's not necessarily where there's, a task list and you follow it and you can make funny or inappropriate examples, but rather it's just learning and learning higher levels. So maybe some CEU courses are going to be somebody going through their research and talking about, as an author, this is what we did. This is how we measured it. This is how we took data. This is the room. Like, there are some CEUs that are like that, and they are just as valuable as a really fun and engaging one. So just remember, it's for you specifically to grow. Also, something that happens with CEUs is that you may have to do additional research or attend additional CEUs to really get a topic. For me as a behavior analyst, I know my skill deficit lies in the understanding of RFT, relational frame theory, and ACT. And I know that I can't just take one CEU and I'm going to get it. I know that the first CEU I took, I had no idea what was going on. And then the second one I took, I was like, I don't know. And then I haven't taken the third one yet, but I just keep thinking like, okay, when is it going to click? Right? So that's okay. Obviously, it would be nice to have all of your CEUs like tied up in a nice bow where you walk out. And ideally, that's the goal, right? That no one that's teaching a CEU wants people to walk out and be like, what did I just sit through? I have no idea what's happening. But if you feel that way, know that's okay. And just know, okay, I might have to do some of the legwork on my own. I may have to do some additional research. I may have to go seek out other CEUs. So that is what we're learning is one of the bigger differences, especially when you've had the pleasure to study with my friend over there. And okay, so when Liat and I were revamping this PowerPoint, she told me to add a quote. This is the one I found. I grew up playing softball, so this was the one I thought of. She had a different one in her mind, but it's supposed to be hard. If it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. The hard is what makes it great. And that's from A League of Their Own. And I love that quote. And I think it is really true. If being a BCBA wasn't hard, then everybody would do it. So that's what's going to keep you great and make you great. And you're going to continue to take courses and push yourself and go through the hard things, because that's where the growth happens. Now, how do I make sure I get credit when I'm taking CEUs? This bad boy right here, this logo means that the BACB has approved a specific organization and or entity to provide CEUs. This logo technically, as part of the BACB guidelines for an ACE provider, which CEUs by Study Notes ABA is, we have to have this prominently displayed on our website. You will find this on our How It Works section of our website with our FAQ. This should be somewhere on a page, or there should be information with some sort of, it's called like an OP or an IP number. It just means organization provider or individual provider. You should be able to find that information readily. And it's not to say that there are places that don't have it available, but they should have this prominently displayed. That's how you're going to know that the place that you're taking CEUs from, especially online, is actually providing you credits for the BACB. There are a lot of other different occupations that aren't behavior analysis that actually also have CEUs. So you just have to be careful that you're not purchasing CEUs. I mean, I feel like you would probably pretty quickly, looking at titles, maybe figure out the title of the course, maybe figure out, but it's really possible. There are so many websites that provide CEUs. So just, make sure that if you're paying for something, you're getting credit. Or even if you're, spending your time and taking a course for free, make sure you're actually going to get credit. There are some courses that are free that are for no credit, like something like this, which are solely informational. But again, just make sure you know where you're spending your time. And now, here are some podcasts. Obviously, this is not exhaustive, but these are just some of the podcasts that we enjoy to listen to. Obviously, Liat is half of the behavior bitches, and alone, she's just a behavior bitch. And so, she came off a lot more aggressive than I wanted the joke to land.
Behavior bitch one.
And, so you can listen to podcasts. Sometimes, it's too much to listen to podcasts. You're driving to work, you're working all day, you're thinking about ABA, you get home, you're working a little bit at home maybe. And the last thing you want to think about is listening to a podcast on ABA. That's okay also.
Perfect. Ours are on really interesting things like pimps and cults and blah, blah, blah. So go ahead and listen. And if you don't want to listen, it's not a problem at all. You could totally leave a 5-star review.
Anywho, okay. Here are my references. Obviously, even though this is informal, I'm still going to provide some references that I have. And if you ever have any comments, questions, concerns that are CEU related, please ask away. People will often email me and be like, I'm really sorry to bother you. And my response is, it's literally my job to answer these emails. So please, don't feel ashamed or embarrassed or like you're burdening me. It is literally my job to answer any questions as it relates to CEUs. So fire away, and we will open up for the last few minutes to answer any questions. Let's stop the recording.